this video, I'm going to show to you that there's actually a proven framework to understand property in Singapore. I'm Jamus, certified asset progression strategist with plenty years of experience. I've helped many clients strategize their next move so that they can achieve amazing success in property. Let's get started. Every property goes through 4 phases: early growth phase, peak phase, maturity, and decline. It is very similar to life. You're born, you grow fast, you peak, and then things slow down. HDBs, condos, even landed properties all follow the same pattern. Maybe you are the first buyer thinking of getting a first property, or maybe you already own one and you're wondering, should I keep it or should I do something about it? Here's the good news. As long as you can align your strategy to the correct phase, you're golden. Let's start with the most powerful phase, the early growth phase. Why is this phase so important? Because this is when almost all the big money is made. Let me break it down. For HDB buyers, this is obvious. BTO is when property is the cheapest. For private property, this phase is called building under construction, BUC. It's when developers sell at the best possible prices, and also why you're seeing recent launches doing sometimes 70%, 80%, sometimes even 90%. That's not hype. That is demand responding to value. Think of it like this. At the start, developers have lots of units, lots of supply, so prices must start lower. As supply sells, supply tightens. Supply tightens, step up pricing also kicks in. Developers do it to maximize gains, typically 12 to 20% over the launch period. And then for buyers who come in early, they will be able to capture the upside as the prices move up. So developers are required by the government to sell everything within 5 years. If they fail to do that, they have to pay ABS of 35%. Here's a fun fact many buyers don't realize. When you buy a resale, you pay full mortgage immediately. When you buy a BUC, you don't. Thanks to progressive payment, you pay in stages, which means a big part of your monthly installments can be covered by CPF. If your income is 8,000 and above, and your monthly CPF OA contribution is 1,840, buying with your spouse, that's 3,680 per month. For $2 million BUC property, that means from all the way until TOB, you may not even need to pay a single cent out of your pocket. Here's another reason why early growth is safer: GLS price protection. What happens when developers try to lowball government in their land sales? Rejection. Just like buying Taylor Swift concert ticket on Carousel at a low price. That's why GLS pricing helps protect existing projects from sudden crashes. Next, let's talk a little bit about peak phase. This is what happens when project gets to TOP. You can physically see the building, you can start collecting rental. There's no developer supply unit left, only resale units. Project may look iconic, attractive, sounds good, right? But here's the reality. Most of the biggest gains has already happened during early growth. Now, price movement depends on market condition, buyer sentiment, timing. Your neighbor bought in 1,800 PSF. Now, you buy at 2,300. Can the early buyer sell at 2,200? Of course. But can you sell at 2,200? I'm sure you wouldn't want to lose money. Next, let's imagine everybody bought at 2,500 instead. How many people are willing to sell at a loss at 2,200? Almost nobody. This is why there's a margin of safety. If you are the first timer buyer looking at enter the peak, is it wrong? Not necessarily. Let's take a look at some examples. Jadescape went up 9% after TOP. Sterling Residences 5%. How about Normandy Park? Prices dropped 5%. So unless you need a place to stay for your own stay or primary school registration, it is usually safer and smarter to buy during building under construction phase. Now, let's talk about the phase where both Singapore property owners are today, the maturity phase. At this stage, properties are 5 to 15 years old. While rental looks good, capital appreciation actually starts to slow down. And at the same time, your holding cost starts going up. Here's another thing, you're no longer competing with older condos, you're competing with newer, shinier projects, fresher lease, better layouts, trendier facilities, so demand slowly shifts away. This is also where many owners say, never mind, rental can cover mortgage, I just hold. Sounds logical? But let me show you what's really happening. Resale condos at this age are usually 300 to 400 PSF cheaper than new launches nearby. So yes, they look more affordable, but here's the trade-off. Capital gains slow down significantly compared to new launch products. Which one builds more wealth? Capital build up through rental or capital appreciation? The answer is clear. Capital appreciation. Rental pays the bills, but capital appreciation changes lives. And in Singapore, real wealth has always been built through appreciation, not rental alone. If you miss these earlier phases, you're not losing money, but you are moving to the slower growth lane. Let's take a look at some real examples. Sims Urban Oasis versus condos. Same time period. Sims Urban Oasis went up 8%, while Penrose went up 23%. So if you have sold Sims and bought Penrose, you have made good money. Am I right? Or am I right? Let's take a look at another one. Commonwealth Towers versus Sterling Residences, 6% versus 23%. Or how about this? Clement Canopy versus Blue Horizon, 5% versus 13%. Different projects, same story. Older assets grow slower, but newer growth phase assets move faster. Once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. Now, let's talk about a concept that every Singapore property owners must understand: Bala's curve. This is a recognized framework used in Singapore to show how leasehold value behaves over time. Here's what it tells us. At the start of the 99-year lease, a property is worth about 96% compared to a freehold. Sounds good, right? But when the lease starts dropping to around 60 years, the value falls to around 80%. And 30 years, this becomes 60%. And when the lease runs down to 0, the value ultimately becomes 0. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but inevitably. That's why long-term planning matters. Lease decay is like a silent killer. Once it accelerates, it's very hard to reverse. In summary, when you buy building under construction, you get to benefit from step-up gains, enter a much lower price, pay less upfront, lower holding costs, hassle-free, government land price protects you. When you buy at a peak, you can also make good money, you can move in, but most likely your neighbors will have entered cheaper than you. You have paid a higher price, you face a bit higher downside risk, your margin of safety is smaller. So peak isn't wrong, but early growth gives you the better odds. And in property, odds matter. If you're not sure where your property sits along this life cycle and you want a clear data-driven plan instead of guessing, I'll be happy to walk you through it. I help many homeowners map out their property life cycle, identify where value is being created, and plan the right entry and exit strategy. If you found this useful or learned something new today, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who's making property decisions.